Well, good morning. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. My name is Gavin, and this is LeePod, and we've got a new article for you. Here's a follow-up on a video I had a few days ago about the Americans leaving Turkey, well, leaving Syria, but the border of Turkey, where they were trying to set up a buffer zone between them and the Kurds who had taken over that area. Well, they left, and if you've read any kind of articles recently, looks like Turkey's already started to begin the attack or advance, or however you want to say it, on the Kurds in that area. And some articles were even saying they got out so fast that the Americans couldn't even get out of the way. But I find that hard to believe. You can find various reports on the Americans were already gone. Most of them, there was only 1,000 when the original article first came out that we were leaving. And I think by the time the Turkish even started this advance, I doubt they'd fire on an American position. That's the reason they even started this, because they didn't want to do that. But I mean, any Americans left could have just jumped in a truck together and got out, and they'd have been clear. So there wasn't that many left. Anyway, let's start reading this article. Obviously, Turkey begins attack on Kurds in northeast Syria. Erdogan announces. Turkey has begun its long-awaited assault on Kurdish-held northeast Syria with a wave of artillery strikes and artillery bombardment on Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, positions along the border and deeper into Syria. Mr. Erdogan, the Turkish president, confirmed that what he called Operation Peace Spring had begun, and Turkish forces were attacking the Kurdish fighters who led the battle against the Islamic State, ISIL, ISIS, whatever you want to call them. Our mission is to prevent the creation of a terror corridor across our southern border and to begin to bring peace to the area. They're talking about the area where the Kurdish Americans and Turkish had set up. They were going to bring refugees there, and Turkey still plans on doing it from everything they've said. So I guess they're trying to secure it. They're going to push the Kurdish out of the way and then take it for themselves, so that the way they can repopulate it with Syrian refugees is what it seems like. How they go about that, how successful it is, we're just going to have to find out. Let's continue here. We will protect the territorial integrity of Syria and free the people of the region from the clutches of terror. Turkey considers the SDF to be part of the Kurdistan Workers' Party terrorist group. The strikes began on the border towns of Ras Al Ain and Tal Abyad, but quickly expanded into include SDF targets far outside of Mr. Erdogan's proposed 20-kilometer safe zone along the Turkish border. I mean, this was going to happen either way. If you can't just leave these Kurdish positions. I mean, I personally am not saying that they should be attacking these Kurds, so don't take it that way when I say this. But you can't just attack this 20-kilometer area. That's not a big area. You can't just push into this area and leave your flanks exposed if you're assuming that the Kurds are going to attack you back. That's just asking for trouble. If you push in this little area and you're surrounded by Kurds when you've got this bulge in the area that you make, you're just going to get attacked from three sides, and that's asking for trouble. So it makes sense that they're going outside of what they call that safe zone. You got to make a buffer on top of that, so that way you've got room to back up in case there are counterattacks by the Kurds. Local sources reported strikes on the towns of Derek and Qashli, as well as an SDF base in Ain Isa, close to where a camp holding foreign ISIL wives and children, including some British citizens. 2 civilians were killed in Ras Al Ain, the SDF said. Mustafa Bali, an SDF spokesman, said Turkish warplanes have started to carry out airstrikes on civilian areas. There is a huge panic among the people of the region, and there is a huge panic among people of the region. This is by the Turkish president, a tweet. The Turkish armed forces, together with the Syrian National Army, just launched Operation Peace Spring against the PKK and YPG and Daesh terrorists, which is ISIS. As I said, they have like 3 different names in northern Syria. Our mission is to prevent the creation of a terror corridor across our southern border and to bring peace to the area. Both Kurdish and Arab civilians were fleeing in large numbers away from the border areas, including Kurdish media. The EU called for an immediate halt to Turkish offensive, but there was silence from the White House, which appeared to give Mr. Erdogan the green light on Monday by pulling troops out of the expected invasion zone. I call on Turkey, as well as other actors, to act with restraint and to stop our operations immediately, as we are speaking underway, said Jean-Claude Juncker, the European Commission president. Turkey sent ambassadors from all nations of the UN on the UN Security Council, which includes Britain, France, and the U.S., had been summoned for a briefing in Ankara about beginning of the operation. Western officials are deeply worried that some of the thousands of ISIL prisoners, including British foreign fighters being held by the Kurds, may escape amid the chaos of the Turkish attack. Let me pause here for a second. It seems like a lot of this should be on the UN. As it said here, it doesn't specify whether they previously talked to everyone in the UN Security Council or if that's something that's going to happen in the future, but that's really something that needs to happen. Look, the UN, both these countries are part of it, and the UN beats its chest about how great it is and all the money we put in, Germany puts in, Turkey's a big part of it. They have to step up, and if they can't force their members to behave or to step in and defend these Kurds if they want to against one of their own members, then what's the point of the UN? The U.S. can't just be controlling these situations by themselves. A lot of people are going to say that Trump is leaving the area up to not only the UN, but some conspiracy types are saying it's to allow a vacuum for Russia to come in via Turkey and Iran. But let me read on here. The White House said that Turkey would now be responsible for all ISIS fighters in the area captured over the past few years, but Turkey appeared to contradict that on Wednesday, saying it would demand that Britain and other European countries take their citizens home. Oh boy, that's a good one. They should take them and try them and follow due judicial process, said the spokesperson for Mr. Erdogan. U.S. officials said they had no plans to take control of the prisoners holding ISIL suspects if the Kurdish guards withdrew. So they're just going to leave them if the Kurdish get out of there. Turkish warplanes have already started to carry out airstrikes on civilian areas. There's such a huge panic among people of the region. I think it's the same tweet as earlier. But this is right. Look, you got to start taking your citizens back or leave them to Turkey. You don't have any options. Like you can't just expect the U.S. to build these prisons here and hold these guys forever. Everybody complains about the U.S. getting involved in these places, and then they get mad when we leave. And you have a UN security force for this reason, to take control of these kind of situations, and you're not going to. So you're going to leave it to Turkey. That's your options. You either support them, come in and support the Kurdish with the UN, and take control of these citizens, or take them back home and process them there, or you leave it to Turkey. That's your options. If you leave it to Turkey, they might get out. There could be potential issues with that, but you can't have it both ways. And it seems like that's what they're doing. What's going to happen is they're going to leave it to Turkey, and they're just going to complain about it. Nobody's going to do anything because that's all the UN ever does. It just complains. It doesn't ever do anything. It just complains and says blah blah blah. It's all the U.S.'s fault, or it's all Turkey's fault. But nah, bro, we're not getting involved. We're just going to collect that dirty UN money and not spend it on anything. Let me continue here. Lindsey Graham, a Republican senator close to Mr. Trump, said that the White House had shamelessly abandoned the SDF to a Turkish attack. I urge the president to change course while there is still time, he said. Local Kurdish authorities earlier declared a state of emergency and called on civilian volunteers to head to the front lines. We announced 3 days of general mobilization in northern and east Syria, local administration said, urging all citizens to head to the border with Turkey to fulfill their duty. The first phase of the Turkish attack ground is expected to begin along a 120-kilometer stretch between the border towns of Tel Aviv and Ras Al Ain, the same area that the U.S. forces evacuated on Donald Trump's orders on Monday. Turkey is likely to pound the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces with artillery fire and airstrikes before the beginning of the ground incursion. It seems, based on Trump's own words, the plan is to allow Turkey to take control of North Syria and use sanctions to hurt them if something doesn't go right. Trump is really relying on the Turkish to stand up to their own words. Because from what it seems like, he's already talked to him about it. He's got, I think it said later in the article, but Trump has a meeting coming up on November 13th with the Turkish president. He's actually coming to the White House, so they're going to talk then. So what it seems like is he's already talked to the Kurds, or not the Kurds, the Turkish prior to this, and said, "Hey, we're leaving this to you. We're trusting you with this. Don't mess it up. If there's any war crimes or they push too far," Trump said he didn't specify that, but what it seems like he basically told them not to press their luck, and if they do too much, it'll be a sanction that'll be how he reacts. He's really trying to get out of these wars and push sanctions if there's something he wants to get done, which everybody's been crying for years. So this is what everybody's wanted. Democrats, Republicans, moderates, liberals. Until now, no one's cared, or until now, everyone's cared about getting involved with troops on the ground and staying in these areas. Everybody wants out until it happens, and everybody says, "Why don't we just use sanctions?" And well, that's what Trump is doing. Like him or not, that's what everybody was asking for a long time. And especially the libertarians, they want out of these areas. And if you're more, which a lot of people are on these wars these days, are leaning towards getting out of these areas, leaning towards a more isolationist type view. Not totally, but enough to get out of these smaller areas. Things like Syria. These are places we don't need to be involved in. This isn't Germany. This isn't some huge country that matters like that. This isn't even Saudi Arabia, where you can hate Saudi Arabia all you want, but we rely a lot on for a lot of our oil for them. So if something were to happen in Saudi Arabia, that's something that needs to happen for us. Syria does have some oil wells, but not nearly what someone like Saudi Arabia would have that we'd have to get involved in. This is not a necessary thing. This was just a show of force by Obama at the time while they were dueling with Russia, is what it seemed like. And it seems like Trump is trying to pull back on that type stuff. Let me finish off the article here. Turkey's Syrian rebel proxy groups, but they will act with support from Turkish commandos and under the cover of Turkish air power. Turkish defense officials said that they have removed the section of the concrete border while in anticipation of the attack. And then let me go down to the last part. U.S. officials told the Washington Post they have no plans to intervene and seize control of the string of Kurdish prisons where thousands of ISIL fighters, including British jihadists, are held. This is just a wrap up the article. And this last part, he also he urged Kurdish fighters to lay down their guns and refuse to listen to their commander's orders to resist Turkey's advance. If they refuse to join Turkey, we will have no choice but to stop them from disrupting our counter-Islamic State efforts, he said. He also framed Turkey's plans for a safe zone in northern Syria as a win-win for the international community, saying that would give Syrian refugees in Turkey and Europe a safe place to return to. However, human rights groups have warned that the Turkish place potentially involves vast displacement of local populations in northeast Syria and make room for more than 1 million refugees. Question whether Turkey has a real plan to support such a large population. Kurdish groups pointed to the fate of Afrin, a city in northwest Syria that was overrun by Turkish and Syrian rebels forces in 2018. Syrian rebels were accused of killing citizens and looting once they took control. And that's just a wrap up of the article. Everything, the little part that I skipped is all the same. This was by one of the Turkish politicians. But anyway, let me get your comments below. Tell me what you think. If you think I'm off on this, let me know. I think this is, if if Trump can hold Turkey to this, this is good. While we should be supporting the Kurds, look, we can't support everyone, and at some point you got to let these power vacuums work themselves out. You can't leave if you're going to leave a power vacuum. You got to let it fill, and then you got to let it disperse. You got to let it run its natural course, and sometimes that takes a long time to do. There's going to be somebody like Turkey step in the way, and then the majorities, whether it's Kurdish or former Syrians, are going to come back, demand their area back, and get it back. That's normally the cycle. But sometimes it's bloody, and sometimes it's peaceful. We'll just have to see how this works out for Turkey and the Syrian people, and hopefully we can avoid that via sanctions and not have to get involved ourselves, or possibly the UN. Like I said before, it's on the UN's back to do something if they want to do something about it. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.